Hi everyone, welcome to yet another Design Hack Talk. Today we have with us Kartik Singh, who is working as a designer at Microsoft, and we'll be discussing about qualitative data and how to use it to drive UX solutions. We're really excited to have you, Kartik, here. How are you
Thank
doing
you.
today?
I'm doing very, very well.
Yes, great. Over to you, Kartik.
Okay. So, hi guys. Welcome everybody to Qualitative Data and how to use it to drive UX solutions. I think Siddhi has already told you about me that I work for Microsoft, but I would like to deep dive a little bit more about myself at least. So, I've been in the UX industry since 5 to 6 years now. I started as a graphic designer and then slowly moved toward like UI designing. And after that UI designing, I went for my masters, and after masters I did my UX proper like a UI UX job, and then from there I moved to now a full stack designer kind of role. I've worked with companies like Grofers, InfoEdge. I've worked with a lot of startups. I did a lot of freelance projects, and I think mostly I learned through my experience. And what my experience has taught me that there is no sure short way. There's no one design process which can apply to every particular problems, but there are certain key takeaways which you can take and apply to your design process, and maybe that can help you drive the right UX solutions. So what we do is I would like to try to break this into five major steps, and we'll cover once every step one by one. And how I'm gonna go about it, I'm gonna just talk about overview of my design process, and maybe certain key takeaways where I actually how I find qualitative data and how I use those data to build up my solutions or build up whatever designs I'm delivering here to my companies or to my clients or whatever. But the thing is that in a big corporate, or even, let's not even talk about corporate, let's talk about even like when you are actually dealing with big problems which has a lot of impact, you actually have to be very very sure which insight you are actually delivering to. For example, if you mess up like one bad one wrong UX solution, it can cost like millions of dollars to a company like InfoEdge, Microsoft, or even like Grofers. So we have to like find very very right data, and then we have to convert it into some kind of a numerical aspect. I would like to deep dive more. I'm just started like here, so let's go it. I'll try not to deep dive too much in the design process, but you guys need to understand the design process here also, because using the right quality data and using the right amount of quality data, it can better be applied in the design process. So I'll try to talk about my design process, and then I'll just keep popping up whatever I'm doing, and maybe you guys can connect it later on. Okay. So what happens is, as usual, you get a problem statement, and the what you have to do with this problem statement is just find the right insights to solve it. If you can find even like two good insights, and that's more than enough. For example, WhatsApp, they wanted to solve the problem that, hey, our users, they want to know if the other person has read the message or not. And I think the best insight they found is like, okay, we already use a tick, we can just use a double tick, and maybe that can identify it, and that insight drive to the solution of just double tick with the scene message. And that's it, and this solve the problem very beautifully. So it all comes down to finding the right insights, and if you can find the right insights, you can easily build your UX solutions around it. But finding the right insights always has to be backed up by data. So what happens with these data, let's just first start with like I'll just go from very basic. I just give you like a kind of an intro. There are two kinds of data: qualitative and quantitative data. We try not to use too much of qualitative data, we use only quantitative data. So like, I'm not contradicting myself, we but for this quantitative data we have to convert it from qualitative data. So what we do is we find the right qualitative data, and we in the end has to convert it into some kind of a numerical quantity, some kind of a percentage, some kind of a rate, which we can use to build our UX solutions. Because if you don't get the right metrics, your UX solution can completely backfire. When you talk about qualitative data, it's mostly about understanding emotions and behavior of users. What you talk about quantitative data, it actually is fact and statistics. And one, I have like put two good examples here. Like, I bought the ice cream because of summers and I was feeling very tired and sweaty. So you're understanding a lot of qualitative aspect about the user here. like, hey, he bought the ice cream because he was feeling very tired, he was feeling very sweaty, it was too hot that day. So you're understanding like kind of what behavior he did on what particular occasion. But there's no numerical quantity, you cannot just quantify it, right? But if he said like, okay, at that particular shop 30% of users total which came to that shop bought the ice cream on that summer day, it's actually a number which signifies you to take the right decision. So what I like to do is I like to find the right quality data and convert it into quantity data and use this quantity data to map my UX solutions. I'm going to show you how I go about it. So it all starts finding, this is the first major step, it all boils down to finding the right quality data. And finding the right quality data, first we need to know what to collect. Most people just do wrong here only, they don't even know what to collect because they just get the problem statement and they start like doing their research, primary research, talking to users and all. You should like totally avoid that. You don't get too much of user interviews multiple times. So what we do is we first deep dive like, okay, what kind of quality data we need to collect. And to know that, first you need to know your users. Every problem statement is particularly targeted to a segment of users, 20-26-year-old living in tier 2 cities. It's and all of that, and you need to find your users for that particular problem statement. Because if you don't know your users, how are you going to take their interviews, how are you going to understand their qualitative aspect. So first, because what happens mostly with people is people take two they get the problem statement, they start targeting every user segment, but that's not true. You need to understand your problem statement is associated with what their users are. And even after knowing the problem statement, so I'm using some snippets from my portfolio here, like how I do it. I actually deep dive very much in the problem statement and find some good insights from the problem statement itself. It helps me build what kind of quality data I need, which I can convert into insights. So this is all I'm doing, just to convert that quality data into insights, but I need to find the right quality data first. So extracting my problem statements and finding what kind of my users are, and then I can see the interaction, how my users are behaving around that particular um, problem statement. And what some people like to do is build journey maps, build user flows, but basically you need to just put yourself in the user shoe and see like, hey, I'm a 20-year-old guy, I live in Delhi, and this is my problem, that I'm not able to find, let's say, the right food which I want to order for tonight. How will I behave? What will I do when I go on the app and all? So once you hypothesize that scenario, you do your storyboarding and everything, you get to know some exact feel of what your problem statement is and what your users feel around that, and then you do the most important thing, which is secondary research. So this is the part which most you people miss, and people think secondary research is just going on Google and just brainstorming through different whatever words you have been fed up with, like for example food companies and all. What I like to do is I like to go to multiple research paper journals online and read as much as I can around that particular problem statement and that users. What it does is give me some initial insights, and I can use these insights to form my questions, form the right amount of questions which I need to ask our users. So this is the first major step, like we are researching what kind of quality data we need, and then we form the questions. And this is the last step of this first major step, that and you are halfway there. If you can form the right questions which you need to ask, you are nearly there. So once we understand like what kind of questions we need to ask our users, then what we need to do, we need to go and interview them. So the best quality data you can get from is interviews, and now you know what kind of questions you need to ask, and you know the broader horizon of this, because you have already interacted with the problem statement much better in a way. You start with the interviews. So here comes the first qualitative aspect which I need to talk to you about. How will you know that how much qualitative data is the right amount of data that you need to solve your particular problem? And it all forms down to number of users you want to talk to, and how much number of users will give you the right quality data. So to start with, 7 is a very good number. Already multiple researchers has been previously done, and they said that if you can target your users in the right way, even 5 users can give you sufficient amount of information that you can actually crack that problem. But this need to be right amount of user. It doesn't apply in every scenario. Some people go up to 64 128 participants. There are multiple online methods to find your sample size, but for one-to-one open-ended interviews, 5 to 7 to 10 amount of users are more than enough. So I like to show you when you're doing interviews, the couple of two things which you really need to do. First, you need to reach to a data saturation point, and this is one of the very important things I want everyone to take as a key takeaway. That how much amount of quality data is right amount of data, you get to know only after your insights keeps repeating on. So for example, I was researching around like five different personas, and I actually did like 5, 7, 12, 3, 2 different interviews. And what I used to do is after interviews I used to see, hey, these are the insights that has been occurring again and again. And I saw that after four users, most of the users started just talking about the same thing. They're just talking about this pain point, this particular insight, or this particular scenario. So they keep on talking about the same particular thing. I said like, okay, this is the place where I stop taking interviews. I think I have the right amount of quality data to proceed forward. And what I do is after that I actually take a couple of more interviews just to be sure, like there can be an error scenario that, hey, I'm not missing on any insights. So depending on that, you can like see how many users are sufficient amount of users for your particular research. And this is a very important thing, that unless and until you reach your data saturation point, you don't have the right amount of quality data. Once you do this, second most important thing is that what happens in these kind of scenarios is that you get a lot of quality data, a lot of weird things, because you're talking to, let's say, 12 people. 12 people will tell you maybe 10, 12 repeated insights, but there is some other lot of other insights which you might have not thought about, which you might not have considered about, and they keep talking on. So what we do is like we transcribe all those interviews and we go them through again and again, and we start noting multiple hotspot and patterns. And you need to know what pattern is occurring, what how many times, what insights are occurring how many times. This is the second most important key takeaway which I want you to have. So what we do is we note down like, okay, this problem statement is occurring with, let's say, 10 out of 12 users. So this is the most major problem statement which we have to solve. Okay, this insight is repeating out, let's say, 8 out of 12 users. So this is the most crucial insight which we have to use to drive our UX solutions, or which we have to use to solve our particular problems. So this is also a very important step. As you can see, we have already covered two major steps. We have found out what quality data we have to ask, and then we have collected our quality data, which is the right amount of data we need to solve, but still so much. And what we do is we find patterns. Like in last I showed, like in transcribing, we're finding patterns. We find different patterns, and then we organize them. So affinity mapping is a very common technique, which basically means grouping. So you start grouping your data into different um, groups, sections, whatever you can come out of that. So you note down every different thing. You note down, okay, these are the patterns that are emerging, and then you form into multiple groups, and you organize and you arrange them in your priority order. This is very important. Like, hey, let's say I discovered 6 pain points, and out of 6 pain points, this pain point was the most occurring one. Second one was the less occurring one. Third was the lesser than that. So you arrange them in an arranging order, and you start grouping them together. Once you group them together, you will see that your affinity mapping can be converted into two major important steps, which are pain points and insights. And these are the two important things which build your solution. Like, you need to know what intensity of the pain point is and what intensity of the insight is. So you see in our patterns spotting, we made like multiple hotspots. Like, this is the most important pain point, this is the most important insight. We started arranging them, and we will use this priority order only to build our solutions, to build our architecture and everything. Once you have done that, what you have to do is you have to organize them into multiple themes which you're trying to solve. So what I like to do is I organize my pain points into multiple themes. I map my pain points with the insights I recovered in that quality data in the priority order. And once I map them together, I start getting my final insights, my final pain points, and I start reducing all the clutter out, which was so much. So and what happens in, literally, I get just pain points and insights, and I reduce about 70% of the clutter when I organize them into themes, because there are many things which are might be falling into that group, but they don't come under your theme, under your particular theme. Now comes the fourth and the second most important step, and perhaps the most important step to build the UX solution, is that you have to convert your pain points and insights into quantitative data. So one way I just told you, what we do is we transcribe all the interviews and we see patterns and hotspots. And the second most important thing we do is we prioritize them. And once you prioritize your pain point insights on this pattern spots, you already have a good amount of data which you can start like brainstorming and ideating a solution on. But still, sometimes that is not enough. Sometimes what you need to know is you need to find like how much this pain point intensity is. So we need to get data. What happens in our companies, we get data mostly by our product managers, but what we used to do early in our colleges, we used to build our own surveys and questionnaires around those pain points, around those insights, and we get to know the intensity of that. What it does is it get your validation of your qualitative data. Sometimes what happens, even in 12 interviews, you found out that okay, this pattern has been emerging the most, but when you actually shoot out a survey to a large amount of users, you find out okay, this is an important pain point, but hey, this another pain point which was also like 10 out of 12 users, this is actually the most important pain point. So basically it validates your priority order much more. So we keep reassuring like whatever insight, whatever pain point we recovered, we try to get it to a numerical quantity, like hey, this is 80% more important, this is 70% more important, this is 8 out of 10. So um, the different ways which I showed you is the best one is surveys, questionnaires. Second is you just transcribe the interviews and you make hotspots on them. So what we do after that is we just prioritize, arrange, and repeat. We just keep on repeating this, and it has to be repeated multiple times because this is an iterative process. Sometimes what happens, you find insight and you convert it into numerical quantity, but you find out okay, this is a very good insight. This is it is actually very important, but I won't be I cannot map it with my problem statement. So you have to be reiterative here until unless you are very very sure like this is the pain point I'm solving and these are the insights I'm solving. And now the final step comes, how do you, so you see we have converted our insights and our pain points into some kind of a numerical quantity. What we do is then we just map them. So here I was after doing multiple research in my project, I was able to just find 5 insights, but I was very very sure that this is the insights and this is the order which is in this. And what I did is I just map them with the problems, and the best ways to map them with the problems is to map them using user journeys and information architecture. So you have a user journey of your problem, you map your problem statements there, and then you map your insights exactly with your journey, and you see like now what's the best way to solve them. And that's where the ideation part comes, where you actually start your creative mind and your past experience, your computer study, and other kind of design tools which help you drive the user solution. But this is one some of the major crucial aspects we do there. And please try this at your own risk. Like this is how I go about it. Doesn't mean that it can work for you, but I have seen in most big companies people always convert their quality data into quantity data, and these are some of the tools and techniques they actually use. I would like to answer your questions now, but before that I would like to also tell you that hey, uh, maybe the PPT could be too long, so I will just convert it into like some major steps which you need to take and some key takeaways which you can just get this into this cheat sheet. So again, the four major takeaways I want you to have is that you need to use data saturation method to collect the right amount of quality data. So basically we are quantifying the quality data itself, like this is the right amount of quantity of quality data. I hope you're understanding, it's not too much jumbling though. We use patterns and hotspots to define the priority of our insights and pain points among our transcribed interviews. We also convert our most important pain points and insights into numerical data using surveys and questionnaires. And based on that, we choose the best ones, we reject the least important one. And we finally map these final pain points and insights into our user journey and information architecture. One good example I can give you, let's say you come to Zomato, and the most important pain point you were able to find is that people need to find which food they want to eat. And the best insight they want you have is that hey, most people prefer to order something which is like very very which can be delivered very very fast. So what you can do is you can build an information architecture. The first thing you can build is a search experience because people need to find what food to order. Second thing you can build is a recommendation engine where based on the time, like this one is 30 minutes, this one will be delivered in 30 minutes, this can be delivered in 15 minutes, this can be delivered in 5 minutes. You can base a recommendation engine. So you see how I'm converting this insights and pain points which I finalized based on the priority to build my architecture of the entire screen which I'm about to create. And yeah, that's it. I hope I didn't went too much overboard. I think Shristi will tell me more about it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm back. Thank you so much, Kartik, for a very short yet precise presentation. We had a lot of engagement going on in the chats, and people have a lot of questions. So, can we move? Should we move to them?
Yeah, let's move to the questions. I am gonna just
Yes. Stop your
yeah.
screen. Great. So, the first question we have is from Virat Sahani, and he says that what is the importance of qualitative data?
I think is the most important because as our name say, we are UX designers and experience can only be understood through quality data only. The emotions, the behavior, the patterns which a user goes through is basically experience, and the quality data is the crux of it. But you cannot use just quality data to design the final solutions. That's the main problem. So that's why mostly design researchers they focus on like getting the right quality data and the right kind of behavior patterns or the things which users are doing, because that's what our users want, right? So it's the most important thing. And what happens is I have seen some people they jump directly to making surveys and questionnaires and start shooting them right away. But I think always you should find a qualitative aspect of a particular user experience first to design the solution. Otherwise you will not be able to delight your users. So yeah, this is very important.
This is a really good point, Karthik, that we choose an emotion to work on and try to give that emotion in our products, in our services,
Hmm.
because as you said that great products cannot be made without the right emotion, without giving the right
Yeah, exactly.
experience.
Yeah, totally.
We have the next question from Sunita, and she asked that how do I know my quantitative data is not biased?
It's a very nice question. Are you talking about quantitative data being biased or qualitative data? Because both of data can be biased. So what can happen is if you don't form the right questions, you can actually ask a user a leading question. Leading question is something
Hmm.
doesn't give you open-ended questions. So that's why I told you the importance of doing secondary research and all that first. So most of your doubts can be cleared with already researches being done previously, and then you can actually form the right questions which you need to know to solve your problems. And that's why before even some key takeaways, I actually told you how you should even ask the questions. You should first know about your users and everything. You should extract your problem statement completely. If you have done that very well, if you know your user segment very well, if you have extracted a problem statement, one good technique to do is a 5 why. Like I ask yourself 5 times why if you know your problem, and if you can do that, and then you actually form the questions after doing all the secondary research, mostly it's not biased. So that's
Oh,
it.
yes. Great point again there. We'll move
I would
on to
like to
next.
add something more.
Yes.
The biases which happens mostly is because we have an inbuilt perspective, right? We have a perspective. For example, I like black color, so I will always be leaning towards black. So that's why the first thing to do any kind of research is to know your users, because you have to put yourself in those shoes. That's what I was trying to focus more
Hmm.
on. And once you do that in their shoes, then the biases will start fading away. Yeah.
I have a counter question to that actually, and you said that we should put users before our own perspectives or our own desires. And I just wanted to know that how exactly you, as a designer, uh, understand the needs of the user, because we'll be only able to put the users first before us if we understand their needs, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you exactly do that? Is there any
No,
trick
I
to it?
exactly. The entire presentation was just to know that only what exactly do our users need. So as I told you, what I do is to understand what our users need, we need to get it from them. We know we cannot just hypothesize our users need, because
Hmm.
let's say you are using Zomato, so you can already tell about Zomato. But let's say you are a designer and you're designing for, let's say, Atlassian. You have never even heard the product about. Uh, how can you put yourself in users' shoes? So we need to get it from our users, and there are only couple of ways you can get it. You need to ask them, right? Like, hey, what exactly do you need? But you cannot ask them directly. Also, that if you tell them what exactly
Hmm.
do you need, because he himself don't know. So that's why what we do is
Hmm.
when we get a problem statement, we already do a deep dive into the secondary research and understand a lot of user perspective, and we map the problem statement to user journey, so we can ask them specific questions around the problem statements. And
Hmm.
when we ask them about exact situations, I put them in the exact situations on that particular user journey with that problem statement, and even then I get a lot of amount of clutter. You will never get exact out of those clutter. You have to identify the patterns that has been emerging, and when you identify those patterns, then you can actually see what your users need. Want
Hmm.
versus need is a very very hard thing to crack, and I think so if you crack that, you can become. That's what the difference between a good designer versus a great designer. Yeah, I think.
That's a nice thing, yeah. And I
So
think
again,
I will agree, there's a lot of clutter during our research, and as designers or as beginners, especially, we can get confused as to what to do, how to do, what's the next step, which pattern do I recognize? Is this right or is that right? So
yeah.
there's a lot of things, but surely the methods that
Exactly.
are discussed
So the
today.
best way to do about is for you map them. You see the problem statement. You try to map them with a user journey, and you ask them
Hmm.
exactly the point question. If you ask them, "Hey, what kind of a dashboard do you need?" They say like, "I need this, I need that." But if you ask them, "Hey, I have noticed that you want to track this particular KPI at this particular time. Can you tell me why do you want to do that?"
Hmm.
So they will tell you like, okay, this is I want to do that because of this particular reason. So there you understanding his need, not his want. You didn't ask what he
Ah.
wanted. So this is
Hmm.
like how we go about it. So this is I use literally the same process to drive that particular sort of things. Yeah.
This was really interesting distinction. We can move on to the next question.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, so next question is also from Sunita, and she asked that there are a lot of times when we are interviewing and get varied reactions.
Yeah.
Does it mean we need to keep going? Because in this scenario, we do not get any main outcome.
I totally agree. So that's why I talked to you about the data saturation point. But even
Hmm.
that, if you haven't identified your target user segment with the problem, you will get a lot of users. So the first thing comes down to like which are your users, right? If for that problem statement you can identify that these are my users, then I am pretty sure that they're gonna be after some point answering the same thing because all of them are experiencing the same product over the same amount of time, and they all belong to the same user category. There might be some differences in experience. For some people who are more tech savvy, it can be very easy. Some people who are less tech savvy, it can be hard. But when you start asking, when you have already identified your target audience and your target problem and you have mapped them, then you start answering. Mostly, trust me, around 7, and research has shown it, 7 to 10 is more than sufficient interviews to get your insights and your patterns kept repeating on. So if you have the right amount of data, you won't get too many varied reactions, because let's say I just told you I'm asking this particular scenario how our users feel, and what could be like there could be 4 to 5 different ways users can behave in that particular scenario. So it couldn't be more than 10, right? So based on that, we get to know like this is the right amount of quality data we need. Sometimes it can happen like you can end up interviewing more than like 30-40 people also for like a vast amount of audience. But if you keep doing that, you will automatically see that after a certain point of time the insights and patterns will start repeating on, and if they are not repeating, then there's something you must have went wrong, which also happens from time to time. So you have to go back to the drawing board and start forming the right questions again. So it's much better to nail it down the first time. But if you ask the right questions to the right audience, the patterns will definitely start to emerge, and that's like how everybody goes about it. Yeah.
As you were saying, I was just thinking about one thing, that as designers, we really need to be careful at each step, because wherever we make mistake, from there itself, the process or our solution starts going wrong, right? If we like in this first step, if
I
we
don't agree. I don't agree. I don't agree because it's completely fine to make mistakes, and it happens with us all the time. We end up we end up fucking it sometimes. It's completely okay to do that. But the idea is like how you divert from that. So, for example, I was once trying to do a project, a B2B project, and I
hmm,
had to interview some very very high position peoples like CEOs and all that. Now what happens is these kind of peoples I try to go deep dive into the primary search form surveys and questionnaires, and I found out like, hey, I cannot get that many people to answer the same thing, or I cannot get that many people to even interview with me. So I had to actually change my design process, and I had to apply something called Delphi method. Like, it's a different kind of method where you take less number of people, but you still drive insights from them. So it's okay to commit mistakes, and never ever it happens that the designer's single process goes linear. It always goes in zigzag manner, and at every step you have to decide what next thing you need to understand to solve that particular problem. Yeah.
Yes, no, I definitely agree on the mistake part, but only meant that, if, like you said, that if we try one thing and it's not working, then, and if we keep on going with it, then our entire process gets messed up.
Exactly, it does. So that's what happens. At each point you need to see that, hey, if the
Recheck.
problem statement which I have actually is going in the right direction, the problem statement is going in the right direction of the users. Because if say it's a design process is all like building blocks, it's like a building, and if the
Hmm.
bottom floor is not well made, the top floor definitely needs to collapse. If you're working on the wrong insights and the wrong pain points, you
Hmm.
won't be able to solve your problem. So yeah, try to be as precise, and that's like literally what designer over the experience gets. After like talking with multiple users over multiple times, we now like get to identify like, okay, now we know exactly how quickly we can get to our target users. And that's the basic difference between a beginner designer and experienced designer, that it takes us less time to find the right insights and right pain points than compared to
Hmm.
somebody who's a beginner designer. And that's all, that all comes with experience, I guess. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay, we have the next question from Neeti Gehlot, and she says that quantitative and qualitative data seem more interdependent than I thought, but to take both into consider can be difficult. Any tips there?
As I said, both of them has to be important, and you cannot negate one with the another. It's just like UI UX debate all over again. People say UI UX designer. UI is completely related with UX, and UX is completely related with UI. One cannot coexist without another, right? Same as with quantitative and qualitative data. So what I am saying is that you taking both into consideration. Basically, you in the end just you need insights and your pain points, right? And if you can get that just with quantity data is good enough. In my experience, it's very hard to just get like surveys directly without knowing like what our users are feeling, what their emotions are, like which pain point was much important to our user, which insight kept on repeating again and again. So what I will suggest is try to get less quality data as possible, but convert them into quantity data and then drive a UX solution. And you can literally see a difference in your designs when you will try to use this process which I just showed. It does help. So try if you can do that. Otherwise, you know, building a good UX solution will always be a little hard, because either you didn't consider the emotions or you didn't consider the data, and both are required, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a balance that needs to be created.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Sunita now asked that can you discuss about his case study where we follow all these steps?
Yeah. So you can actually go on my Behance portfolio, and there are multiple case studies there which you can see. I don't deep dive on a case study because like going through this case study is a 56 to 100 slides, but you can definitely go there. And if you have any problem, if you don't understand my case study, I'm always open and we can have a discussion on that. Yeah.
Definitely. I think, Karthik, if possible, can you grab it right now, your Behance link, and we can give it in the chat for everyone?
Okay. Okay. So I have two portfolios. One I can present publicly, one I cannot, thanks to NDA. So don't judge me on the portfolio completely. But yeah, I
All
have to
right,
drop
no
a
worries.
private chat, right?
No, on comments.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
I don't
anything
know how
works.
to
I
do
can.
that. Can you do that for me? It's
Yes,
not
sure, definitely.
okay. So go to my Behance and check this exactly the snippets which I used it from. Naukri report and analytics. It's a very deep dive case study. Could be a little hard to understand, but if you read it thoroughly, you'll see like how I actually went on converting good quality data into quantitative data insights, and good data points and everything, and how I tied up all together to form my UX solution. And
Hmm.
if there's any problem, always open to talk about it.
Yes. So we have like one last question, and it's from Neeti, and she says that it is difficult to make quantitative data from qualitative data. Need tips there too.
As I said, the best is in when you take interviews, you transcribe every single interview and you start noticing down the similar kind of pointers that keep happening out. Once you note down these pointers, you prioritize them in order, and you will automatically get a rough draft of what your quantitative data final insight should look at. And then what you just have to form questions around it. For example, you found out the insight that I'm going to take the same Zomato example again. I'm taking Zomato example because I think that everybody can relate it to very well. So I'm going to take that same Zomato example. Let's say I got this quality data that people want delivery as fast as possible. That's the main insight which kept on repeating on. So I can form the questions around, okay, would you prefer, will with our target user segment, will you prefer delivery of will you prefer a delivery over this particular parameter, will you prefer this particular over this parameter? So we can ask some questions regarding that, and based on that we can easily convert it into stats. Like I use Google Forms for this, and they automatically just Google Forms for it, and they automatically
Google
just
Forms, yes.
everything into pie charts and bar graphs, and you can just clearly see, okay, this one is more important, this one is less important. And most importantly, you should do it with pain points. So let's say if you find a particular pain point, you can just make it in a question and ask them, hey, how important it is to you, and you can shoot it down to as many users as you can. And if you see, like my quality data pattern spotting said like 7 out of 12 users is doing that, and my quantity data said like 30 out of 54 users are also talking about this pain point is the most important one. um, you get numerics, and then you can use it to build your UX solution. Yeah.
Pretty
Was it able to
apt
get that,
answer.
or still this? Can we get quality data from quantity data too? Oh, very nice question. I think you can, because if you have like if one is true, the reverse can be also true. If people are talking about that, okay, this is my major pain point, you can understand some kind of emotions if you can put yourself in the
Hmm.
user shoes, that okay, this is the most important pain point, so our users must be feeling this particular thing that. So yeah, you can do that. As I said, that it's always like an prioritize, arrange, and repeat. So we keep doing that a lot. Like we get some quantitative insights, and then we again go back and ask our users sometime, hey, we found this particular instance, and I never knew that before. Can you tell me, well, how does you feel about this, or what your thought process, or can you tell us like any particular scenario where you have to encounter this? And we again get this quality data, and we see we map it with our existing data. Like okay, this is actually important. So we keep going through and back. So it doesn't mean that once you get your all the quantity data, you cannot go back and ask more questions. You can definitely do that. The idea here is to get good insights, good pain points in a well organized manner. Because unless until you have a list of pain points and insights in an organized manner, you won't be able to map them with your user journeys, and you won't be able to give good UX solutions for that. So as long as this works for you, the reverse works for you, it's fine.
Ah, pretty interesting. Yes, I think we have covered all the questions in the chat. For all the audience listening to us, if you guys have any last minute questions, please do drop them in the chat. We'll take them until our audience is deciding. I just have one question for you. And I just want to ask you, that what is that one advice you would like to give to, especially the budding designers, because this topic that we discussed today, using qualitative data, it's not easy, or it's not taken into consider by budding designers, because we are always focusing on, you know, what we have, what we can see, the data, and little do we actually sometimes, I would say, implement emotions or work on them, or consider them. So like, any suggestions or any advices there?
Yeah. So, to all the budding designers, this is a big mistake which I did, and I can tell you from my experience. I used to jump to UX solutions, to final
Hmm.
designs,
Hmm.
much more in my design process before considering research,
Hmm.
and the final solutions were not at all very effective. And I used to do that
Hmm.
problem. Now I have done like this 70-30 thing, where 70% time I just think about like the final insights and pain points, and 30% of the time I actually go and design them. Because
Oh.
once you have the right amount of information, you can easily solve the problem. Then it all comes down to creativity, and everybody is that much
Hmm.
creative that they can take inspiration from the competitors, they can take inspiration from other apps or the platforms, they can get ideas around like how users are already solving it, they can form solutions. And I would like to tell everybody that, hey, definitely go for interviews, take some quality data to convert into numbers, and then build your UX solutions over it. Your portfolio will look very, very amazing. People, it will make more sense to people. Like, here, if you can consider somebody's pain into numbers, you are a very good designer, you're doing your job pretty well, you can get that experience quantified. And even if you're not getting that many users to conduct your research on some, at least try to put yourself in the user's shoe. Most of you guys are working on consumer facing apps, so put yourself in like the person who's ordering food from Zomato, or the person who's ordering something from Amazon, or the person who is probably booking a flight ticket, right? Put yourself in the shoe and try to see it from their perspective, how they will feel at that particular scenario. And even if that much you do, that is also going to make your solutions more effective. The people think what design process does is it gives them a key to design solutions. It doesn't. You can design solution right directly like that. You get a problem, you can like come up, start coming with a solution. But what design process does is it gives you a direction and approach so you can build your solutions better. So even if you
Hmm.
don't use this, you can still build your solutions, but if you use this, the solutions definitely come out much better. And you can only feel
Hmm.
that once you actually apply it in your design process. So go try it. I literally, I think my this deck is ready, and the pointers are very, very simple. Step one, users. Step two, extract problem. Just try that, and you will be able to see the small difference in your portfolio, the larger difference in your portfolio.
Hmm.
That's what happened with people that I meet with, and they start using building their design process. They start considering the small, small pointers. They start quantifying things. They start quantifying insights. Like one thing I just told you about, like you need to find like how what amount of quality data is the right amount of data. You need
Hmm.
to go to the data saturation point. So we go to that much specific that we try to quantify, we try to cover everything possible. And if you have covered everything possible, definitely a solution will be much better, right? So do try it at your own risk though.
Wow, Karthik, I mean, that was actually fabulous. And especially the point you mentioned where you said that we actually do not need a design process to come to solutions. We can have a problem and we can get solutions, but to get solutions that are actually make an impact or that actually make good products, that is what a design process is needed for. And
Exactly.
most yeah, most of us, as you said, and as even I as a designer face that I am often in a hurry to just finish up my project or case study, and I'm like, let's just get over with it. And sometimes I'm, not considering everything. So I definitely felt you there. But
I told yeah.
all of these things that we discussed today can will have a huge impact on me and the audience.
Exactly.
So, so yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Karthik, and giving us your time. These
No
are
problem.
some, yeah, these are some really amazing suggestions. And for everyone listening to us, you can reach out to Karthik on LinkedIn. We have given his link in the description below. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you again, Karthik. Have an amazing weekend, everyone, and Karthik.
Thanks
Uh,
everybody. Thanks Siddhi. Yeah, have a
Thank
great
you.
week.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.